You worked hard. You did everything right. Degree, skills, experience. You're good at what you do, maybe even great. And yet, your salary hasn't meaningfully moved in years. You look around, the company's doing fine. Record profits, actually. Your CEO just bought another house. But when you asked for a raise, they said the budget was tight. Something doesn't add up. Here's what they're not telling you. Your salary isn't based on how hard you work, how much value you create, or even how much the company can afford to pay you. It's based on something far more calculated. And once you understand the actual mechanism keeping wages low, you'll never look at your paycheck the same way again. Let's start with a number that should make you uncomfortable. In 1979, if you adjusted for inflation, the average American worker made about $23 an hour. Today, that same worker makes $23.15 an hour. 45 years. 45 years of technological progress, productivity gains, economic growth, and wages moved 15 cents. But here's the strange part. The economy didn't stay flat. GDP more than tripled. Corporate profits exploded. The stock market went parabolic. Wealth was created, enormous amounts of it. It just didn't go to you. Now, before you think this is some rant about greedy bosses or capitalism, hold on, because the reality is far more interesting than that, and far more mechanical. Your salary isn't low because someone's evil. It's low because the system is designed very specifically to keep it that way, and most people never learn the rules. Here's how it actually works. When a company hires you, they're not thinking about fairness. They're not asking, what's this person worth? They're asking a different question entirely. What's the minimum we can pay to get someone capable into this seat? That's it. That's the game. And the answer to that question isn't determined by you. It's determined by everyone else willing to do your job for less. This is called labor market pricing, and it's brutally efficient. Think about it. If your employer can find 10 people who do your job for $50,000, why would they pay you $70,000? They wouldn't. Not unless they absolutely had to. So your salary isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of your replaceability. And that changes everything. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. You, as an individual, need this job. You have rent, bills, maybe a family. You need income consistently, or your life falls apart in a matter of weeks. Your employer? They don't need you specifically. They need someone in your role. But if you leave, they'll post the job on Monday and have interviews by Friday. Life goes on. This is called asymmetrical bargaining power. You need them more than they need you. And when one side needs the deal more than the other, the side that needs it less wins. So when you walk into a salary negotiation, you're not starting from equal footing. You're starting from a position of structural disadvantage. You need the offer. They can walk away. Which means the price gets set closer to what you will accept, not what you're worth. But it gets worse. Because your employer isn't just negotiating with you. They're negotiating with the invisible crowd of people who want your job but don't have it yet. Economists have a term for this. They call it the reserve army of labor. Sounds dramatic, but it's accurate. At any given moment, there are millions of people unemployed or underemployed willing to work for less than you currently make. Maybe they're younger, less experienced, more desperate. Doesn't matter. What matters is they exist. And their existence puts a ceiling on your wage. Because every time you think about asking for more, your employer is mentally comparing you to them. And if the gap gets too wide, they'll just replace you. This isn't a threat, it's a constraint, a price ceiling built into the system. And here's the kicker. The more people in the reserve army, the lower wages go. It's mathematical. When unemployment is high, wages stagnate. When it's low, wages tick up. Not because employers suddenly get generous, but because they have fewer alternatives. Your pay isn't about you, it's about supply and demand, and right now the supply of workers is high enough to keep demand for any individual worker low. Okay, but wait, what about productivity? You've probably heard this argument. Workers today are far more productive than workers in 1979. We have computers, software, automation. One person can do the work of 5. So shouldn't wages have gone up? They should have, but they didn't. Here's what happened instead. Between 1979 and 2020, productivity in the U.S. grew by 61%. That means the average worker was producing 61% more value per hour than their parents did. Wages grew by 17%. Where did the other 44% go? Profits, shareholders, executives, stock buybacks, dividends. The wealth was created. It just got rerouted. And this is the quietest part of the whole story, because productivity gains used to translate to wage gains. For decades after World War II, if workers made more, they earned more. The line on the graph moved together. But sometime in the late 70s, the lines diverged. Productivity kept climbing. Wages flatlined. What changed? A lot of things, but here's the big one. In the 1980s, corporate America and policymakers made a choice. They decided that the primary goal of a company shouldn't be to balance the interests of workers, customers, and shareholders. It should be to maximize shareholder value, period. Sounds technical, but it had massive consequences. Because if your only job as a CEO is to make the stock price go up, then every dollar you pay in wages is a dollar you're not returning to investors. So wages became a cost to minimize, not a partnership to invest in. And the tools to minimize that cost got very sophisticated. Outsourcing, offshoring, contract labor, gig work, part-time schedules, all designed to pay people less while extracting the same amount of work. It wasn't evil, it was efficient. But efficiency for shareholders meant stagnation for workers. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I can just negotiate better. You can try, but here's the thing. Most salary negotiations happen within a range the company has already decided. They've done market research. They know what other companies pay for your role. They've set a band. Let's say that band is $60,000 to $75,000. You can negotiate within that range. Maybe you push them from $65,000 to $70,000. Congrats, you won. But you didn't actually win. You just moved within the box they built. The real question is, why is the top of the box $75,000 and not $95,000? And the answer brings us back to the same place, because they can fill the role at $75,000, because there's someone else willing to work for that much, because your replaceability sets the price. Negotiation only works when you have leverage, and for most workers, most of the time, leverage is the one thing they don't have. Here's the irony. Individually, you're replaceable, but collectively, workers aren't. If every worker in your industry demanded higher wages at the same time, companies would have no choice but to pay. There'd be no reserve army to tap into. This is why unions used to work. They aggregated leverage, turned individual weakness into collective strength. But union membership in the U.S. has collapsed. In the 1950s, about 1 in 3 workers was in a union. Today, it's 1 in 10. Without coordination, you're back to negotiating alone. And alone, you lose. It's a classic collective action problem. Everyone would be better off if everyone demanded more, but no single person wants to risk their job by being the first to ask. So wages stay low, not because workers don't deserve more, but because they can't organize the leverage to demand it.